Hello, everybody, and welcome this afternoon to this LinkedIn Live that I promised you at 4 o'clock with Janey Lee Grace. Just going to introduce you, Janey. So, I've got here Janey Lee Grace is an Amazon #1 best-selling author, commentator, and co-presenter on the UK's biggest radio show, BBC Radio 2, Steve Wright in the Afternoon. She runs the popular recommendations blog imperfectlynatural.com. Janey, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Lovely to meet you virtually.
Yeah, we've spoken a few times before, but this is the first time we've used this piece of software actually, so hopefully you're watching us all okay. So how's your world? How's the radio world? And tell us about how you got into radio for those that don't know anything about you.
Yeah, so I've been in radio for absolutely years. I mean, obviously at the moment, everything's a little bit different because we're all working from home and it's very, odd, as everyone's world is. But yeah, I've been doing, believe it or not, the same show for, my goodness, 20 years. And I only know that because my son is that age and I remember being pregnant. Otherwise, I would have said 7 years. It's gone in a flash. But yeah, I've been working in radio for a long time, probably, certainly 25, 28 years all told. Yeah, I mean, working in radio is amazing. Radio is just fabulous, actually. It's a little bit addictive. You kind of get into it and you can't get off.
Well, it's great, and thank you for agreeing to speak to us today, because it's really sharing some top tips on kind of the business owners that want to get radio ready, that want to open up the opportunities to get on radio, either with a topical news story or to be positioned as the expert. So it'd be great to get your feedback from both a radio host stroke producer point of view in general, not just obviously for Radio 2, because it's kind of a different vibe.
Course, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, what top tips would you give us in light of what we're all going through? Are radio stations still producing similar content?
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's been very interesting. I think at the beginning of all of this, there was the kind of feeling that we couldn't discuss anything unless it was directly COVID-19 related. But I think actually, the media is a big old beast, and journalists have got column inches to fill, and presenters and, editors have got airtime to fill. And so actually, we do need a mix of stories. So I think there is absolutely still room for whatever it is. I mean, there will be some things that are, not going to work, but people can use their own nous really to work that out. But I do think that consumers, listeners, and readers of print media are really keen to hear about everything, really. Lifestyle stuff, health and well-being, natural stuff, wildlife, gardening, hobbies, all kinds of things, food, all of these topics. Any lifestyle topic, I think, is probably even more needed now, actually, because some people have got more time on their hands, so they do want to hear about stuff. And if you've got a business to promote, if you've got a brand to promote, really the message is always the same. And that is no editor or producer or presenter wants to promote your business. That's not what they're interested in. They're interested in a great story and a great angle for their listeners. So your job is to decide what that angle is. What's that bit of knowledge, expertise? What's the hook that you can create, that you can share, that's going to get you the airtime that you want?
Brilliant. And it is true. I mean, a lot of people, where they go wrong, they're writing an advert, really, aren't they, rather than a press release. And it's about making that emotional connection. What is great, and I'm a big lover of BBC radio stations, albeit nationals and also the regionals, because it's a lot more talk, isn't it? And especially the regional BBCs, they're a lot more friendly. They give you a lot more airtime. And producers sit down and they forward plan, but also they're very reactive to the news, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely. So I think, it's really worth identifying the slots that might work for you. So if you want to be on, a certain radio station, perhaps it's in your local, geographic area, then make sure you've had a listen to the kinds of things they cover. Because if it is a commercial radio station and they only play music, it doesn't matter how great your story is. They're not going to cover it. They're not going to change their format for you. So you need to find the programs that are the ones that you could fit into, unless it's a direct news story. That's very slightly different. And then pitch to those people, so that you know exactly where you're headed and what you're going to aim for. And yes, you're right, they do plan ahead and they react. So it's a great idea to make sure that they've got your details on file, so that if a story comes up and it happens to be your area of expertise, they're going to remember, oh, actually, you know what, I had that pitch from whoever it was who did whatever it is. I'm going to call them now because they can make a comment on this news story that's just broken.
Yeah, and we suggest that all the time. You don't necessarily need to have a press release to keep in the little black book, do you? You can almost just introduce yourself and tell them what topics you can talk about and suggest debates, perhaps. Because the job of the journalist is to create the story or to come up with the debate and the angle of it. Your job is to be the great, or their job is to be the great source of information. So talking about getting in the little black books and kind of, so you kept on file, how does that work? Do you, I know you're more on the presenter side, but I know you've done the producer side and you work with producers. Do they keep their contacts? Do they share their contact? How does that work?
Well, I mean, obviously, I can't speak for all radio stations. I don't think there's any one kind of rule across all the media. I think people work differently, but as a general rule, I think most good editors and producers will want to keep a file of good people, because if a story breaks, if a celeb has got divorced, they're going to want to be able to, whoever is working that day, they're going to want to be able to call up the computer to, have we got a divorce expert in the house, who we've used before or who we know is good, and they don't want to have to trawl around for hours. So if they've got someone on file, it's obviously going to make their job a lot easier, which is why we hear the same experts over and over again, because they work, they're easy, the numbers there in the file. So, there's a little bit of groundwork to be done to make sure that you get your number in that file. And of course, the first time they use you, they're taking a punt, which is why it's really important to make sure that your pitch makes them feel safe, that you're going to be okay, so it's obvious you know your staff and you're going to be media ready. And that's just critically important, because it doesn't matter how great your story is or the book you've written or the business you run, if you can't really communicate effectively, you probably won't get on air to start with, but you certainly won't be asked back. and I say that jokingly, but trust me, I've seen so many people who really have not done their homework on this, and it's not always instant and easy for everybody. Just because you, as I say, you have a great business or you've written a great book doesn't mean that you know how to communicate it really well for the media. So it's really worth doing your homework to make sure that you're going to be the kind of expert or interviewee that they need.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's also understanding as well where your job is to kind of give content, give value, like any marketing, isn't it? And then the job of the journalist is to introduce you. So they'll give you an intro and an outro, won't they? They'll kind of generally introduce what you do. And sometimes I might even say, best-selling author of the book and title the book, or maybe refer to the website. So they will get promoted by the journalist. It is kind of a win-win on both sides.
Yeah, very much so. And I think one of the mistakes that many sort of brand owners, authors, experts make is that they see their interview as a kind of a sell. And so from the first moment, it's as you'll know when you've read my book XXX, and then in my book XXX, well, chapter 3, if you haven't read it yet, and it's too much, it's exhausting, very, very, very off-putting, and totally unnecessary, because the reality is, if you're introduced, it doesn't even matter if the presenter hasn't credited your book or whatever, although, as you say, they normally would, but it really doesn't matter, because if your content is interesting, people's, their ears will prick up, they will listen, they will want to know who you are and what the book is. And of course it will be said at the end, and you know what, even if it isn't, you'll be found because you were interesting, not because you pushed it down their throat. I remember years ago coming in halfway through an interview that I was listening to, I think it was BBC London or something. I came in halfway through and I heard a woman with an Australian accent, and she was talking about a specific angle of parenting. It was so fascinating. And I was listening to her story and I was listening to everything she was saying. And at the end, the presenter said her name so quickly, I just grasped the name, and I got straight back, Googled it, found her, bought her book, and have followed everything she does since. But if she'd been constantly saying, well, in my book this, in my book that, I wouldn't have engaged in the same way. It was hearing her story, hearing the stuff she was talking about, that made me want to know more about her. And that's really what this is about. It's not a platform for you to stand up and say, you buy. It's about sharing.
Yeah, and those are really good points. And the thing is, it is amazing, isn't it? The opportunities that it creates, not just the profile and raising the credibility, but it genuinely does. You know, people will Google now and find you, and it creates sales, doesn't it? It's as simple as that. I know that we've had clients that have gone on Radio 2. I've had lots of interviews myself, and sales will go through the roof. But it's great then because you can leverage the PR afterwards, can't you? You can leverage that you've been on radio, you've been interviewed by X, Y, Z.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is. It's a game changer for many people, and of course, it's not even just the national or the local radio stations. There's now community stations, there's podcasts. There's so much you can do actually, particularly now, that really make a difference. And I think the reason it's so powerful is because, well, as I just alluded to, people get to know a bit about you when they can hear your voice. No, it's not quite the same as TV. In some ways, it's better because they can use their imagination, and they can hear you and they can connect with you. And it really, really makes a difference. We've all heard experts on the radio. I mean, sometimes you hear, I don't know, lawyers, don't you, on the radio or whatever, and you just get a sense. I remember thinking this the other night, actually. I was listening to a radio station and there was a lawyer, I think actually it was talking about wills, and some stuff to do with trusts. And I remember listening to this guy. He was a really good interviewee. And I remember thinking, I must jot his name down because, I might have some of that stuff to deal with. And he really sounds like I could like, know and trust him. It comes back to that like, know and trust factor. And I got a feeling just from hearing him that I could like, know and trust him. So I've written that down.
Yeah, and that's the thing, you buy into that person. It's like speakers, isn't it? Or when we go networking as business owners, you get a small insight to people. And I think as well, if they're sharing value and content or vulnerability, that's when you get to know that personality. You think, yeah, I could work with them, because you could find 5 will writers, but only resonate or kind of connect with one on level. Yeah, they're really going to get my back. Is there any top tips on what not to do? I know there's quite a few, but any kind of like really what not to do? I mean, what we're trying to do is encouraging people to take action and contact their local producers or the national producers for any radio stations, like you say, match the right audience. Is there any big mistakes, Janey, that we shouldn't be doing?
Well, I think, as a general rule, people tend to assume that editors, journalists, producers will want, their life story, will want reams and reams and reams of content, will want, books. And I mean, it just isn't the case. We want really bite-sized bits of content. So I think having, getting your press release right is really important. Having your kind of press kit is really important. And that means if you really want to be on radio or on podcasts, you do need something recorded so that we know how you sound, so that we know that we can hear you and you can communicate well. It is important, if you're going for print media, obviously, then a photograph is really important. Or if you're going to be on TV, we just need to make it easy for the journalist or the editor. We need to make it easy for them to choose you. So the more clarity you can have around what your key angle is, the better. So because if you're in a radio studio, and to use the same example, if it's a piece on divorce, and actually we know that the angle that they're coming from is that, I don't know, too much money is given away or whatever it is, one party gets too much. If that's the angle they're looking for, they need to be absolutely clear that that's the angle that you're going to be coming from. So that needs to be clear. If there is a real specialty in what you do, make it really clear. It doesn't work to just be a lawyer. If you're pitching to a radio station, don't pitch to a radio station as a lawyer. Pitch to a radio station who specializes in, corporate law or whatever, family law. You may do other things as well, but it's a really good idea to niche for your individual press release so that it's really clear as to where they might be able to file you, or use you. And obviously, if you've got an angle, then make sure it is newsworthy and or current or topical or of interest in some way. The fact that you've brought out a new product or you've got an online course is not interesting.
No, but then people connect to you because they want to learn then after you've shared something about you, which is
absolutely
great. The other thing with radio, which is I've always found, which is great, and even more so now, especially with the current situation, is you don't have to go into the studio to be interviewed, do you, with technology? You know, you can do it over the phone line, over things like this, you know, so it's a lot more open for everybody, isn't it? Because I think a lot of business owners, and certainly my connections that are watching this, sometimes we think, oh, PR or radio is only for the big corporates, but it is pretty much fair game for most people, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it definitely is. It really is. I think that anyone, you know, could find themselves in a radio situation, whether that's online or in a studio, because it's purely about the angle, it's purely about the story, and it's just got to catch the attention of someone, and you're off, you're up and running. And as you say, with technology, we can be anywhere in the world. I think this whole situation will change it forever. Actually, I think they'll bring radio stations will bring less people in, unless perhaps it's a phone in where you need specific equipment. I think they'll bring less people in than they ever did.
I think we've adapted amazingly, really, and aren't we lucky we're in the era of technology?
Yeah.
You know, because I think a lot of people are absolutely embracing this and thriving in business because they've adapted and adopted so quickly that, you know, there's great opportunities. So I think it's just reassuring everybody that it is a level playing field, you know, whether you're a huge big corporate or a solopreneur, as long as you've got a great story, the expertise, you can still comment, can't you?
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. It's absolutely a level playing field, and anyone can come up with, you know, a great angle, a great story, and you know, as long as you can communicate it, you can be the next big thing, literally.
Yeah, I know, and it's so exciting. I get really excited. Okay, so what we've done before, we've worked together before, and I know if anybody's watching this, if you would like to work with Janey, we've done it so that, like Janey said, sometimes it helps you if you've already been interviewed by somebody. So Janey set up, it's called How to Get On Air Ready, and it's a kind of a program that gives you all the media training. So she teaches you how to get on radio and get ready, but also does an interview with you. So if you're interested, there's the link, or I'll add the link. You can click through and secure that so you can work with her. And we've had great feedback from that in the past. But tell us about your awards, Janey, because you do lots of different things actually. You know, so tell us about your awards.
Yeah, I wear quite a lot of hats, but with my sort of imperfectly natural hat on, that's the title of my books and my website. I do an awards program every year, and the idea is that it aims to recognise the best in natural and eco and organic, and I mean the categories are huge. And when I first started doing this, you know, everyone used to laugh at me and say, well, why don't you just make it an awards for sort of natural skincare? And then I thought, well, you know, if you think about what you put on your skin, that's not going to work unless you're thinking about what you're eating. So I can't just do that. So I'll do food. And then it's, well, then you need to think about what you clean your home with. So I need to do home. And in the end, I just thought, blow it, you know, it's my train set. I want to recognize all of this stuff. So I have got a stupid amount of categories, but somehow it works. And I've been doing it 5 years now, and I'm really lucky. I've got fabulous judges who love testing out these amazing products. And it's not just products either. It's also, we have categories for coaches and therapists and authors, and the only criteria in inverted commas is that your product or your service is somehow linked to holistic living, so health and well-being, spirituality, being eco-friendly. That's the kind of remit. So it's a very wide berth, and it works really, really, really well. So it's an online awards. You submit online, and the most unusual thing I think about my awards compared to, because I'm a big fan of entering awards, I think it can be a great way to promote what you do. Yeah. But with my awards, we focus on not so much on the winning. I mean, great if you win, but we focus on the lead up. So I do as much promotion as I can, and actually sort of champion the products, because the real aim of it is to share all this amazing information with people who didn't realize that you can get an incredible natural deodorant or a organic aromatherapy reed diffuser. You know, they didn't know. So that's why we want to do this. So there's a lot in there that's about promotion along the way.
And I know it's great as well, because you, of all people, you've got connections to all of the media, because I know we've worked before and send out stuff, so that if anyone's interested, they can either enter the award. I would imagine you've got like sponsorship opportunities, have you, with people?
I have actually. There are some opportunities for sponsorship, and that's really amazing, because people, of course, get to be on across all the branding and all the promo. And I write a lot of articles and columns. So if I, get behind a brand, I really like to promote them as much as I possibly possibly can, because I'm just such a big fan of holistic living stuff. And that all started from being on the radio, by the way. I was talking about my own stuff, and then a publisher got in touch and said, "Oh, I've heard you talking about eco balls for washing," and that's how it all started. I hadn't even got a business or a book before that.
What I do love about you, Janey, is that it's funny, because I've interviewed in my business, I've got to interview lots of celebrities and people that are really high profile, and you kind of hit that level, but you're just a normal person.
I don't think so.
No, but you're so wonderful, and you are radio too. You've been doing it for years. You've met some amazing celebrities yourself. You've got all the stories I would imagine in the world, but you're just a normal person, aren't you? You're this is where anyone watching this is, you would interview them in just a normal way, be kind to them. They're not, journalists aren't out to catch you out, are they? That's what I'm trying to get across.
No, exactly. I mean, I think the reason, when I do media training with people, I try to encourage them to literally be their best selves. So yes, it is a performance, in inverted commas. It's not okay to literally kind of rock up to the microphone, sort of yawning and burping as you go. There is a bit of preparation needed, and you are sort of on your best behavior, but you are just yourself. So, it's working out what are the best bits of you and your story that you want to share. And within that, it's from the journalist's perspective, the producer's perspective, it's about the beauty of it is keeping the voice of that person. So we don't want anyone to be what they're not, or say stuff they're not comfortable with. I mean, one top tip is always, if you're asked a question that you don't want to answer, I'd rather not answer that, thank you. End of. Don't try and come up with, this is where we see people fall down in the media, don't we? We've all seen it.
Yeah.
And then at the other extreme, you can become a politician, and you can have your agenda so worked out that it doesn't matter what the question is, you'll answer with something else. And
we've had a lot of those recently, haven't we?
We certainly have, yeah, absolutely. It's like, okay, my agenda point number 3, I haven't been asked the question, but I'm going to say it anyway. But there's a middle ground where you are personable and friendly and inspirational, and you're sharing your fabulous angles, but you're also, absolutely remembering your own agenda and what it is you want to get across, and that flows beautifully.
Yeah, and this is where you're great at teaching people to do this, because it is a balance, isn't it? And it's getting right 2 or 3 key messages, and it's brilliant. And I know you've shared with me, and if people want to work with you, just let me know, or I'll put the link. Just one final thing then before you go, and you don't know, I'm going to ask you this. I know we've kind of really prepped this because we talk naturally between each other anyway. Who's the best person you've ever interviewed, celebrity-wise?
Oh, God. It's such a difficult one. I mean, there are so many. I mean, one of my personal. Oh yeah, I know. What did I do? Who did I do last? Huey Lewis. Yeah, he was lovely. I think probably one of my personal faves is someone like Chris Martin, but and people like Eddie Izzard, but only because I'm completely in love. I'm such a massive fan of Eddie Izzard. It was funny because for the first, it must have been 6, maybe 7 years that I was on the Steve Wright show. Eddie used to come in, and everyone knew I was a massive fan. Like, I'm one of these people I'm a bit nuts about Eddie, and even though I've met absolutely everybody, and I'm not fazed by anything, obviously, so I meet celebs all the time, but I didn't want to meet him because I was worried that if I did, the kind of, he wouldn't match up to what I thought. And the way it worked out, for 7 to 10 years, literally every time he came in was a day that I wasn't working, or interestingly enough, he came in 3 times when I was having babies. I've got 4 kids. And so he kept coming in when I was having babies, and we all started to think there's something really weird going on. And then finally I got to meet him about 5 years ago, and he was just absolutely lovely. So he did match up. I was so nervous, but he did match up to all expectations. Yeah.
Oh, so, it's brilliant.
Yeah, he'd be the top.
Brilliant. And it shows you the celebrities are doing the radio because they want the promotion and the profile, don't they? So they're using it.
Absolutely, and totally. And when you hear really big time celebs on the radio, what's quite interesting is, what you were saying about how the way people kind of worry about, am I going to get my plug in? Sometimes we'll have a celeb in and we'll talk to them for, I don't know, if let's say it's a 20-minute interview, we'll talk to them for a full 15 minutes about the holiday they've just been on, or another, it doesn't matter. It's just interesting talking about, and then at the end, you know, you'll get the little plug and the, you know, whoever it was is starring in whatever at the Palladium, you know, you get the plug at the end. But people have loved the interview, and because they've loved hearing more about that person, of course they're more likely to go buy the ticket.
Yeah, brilliant. Listen, thank you. I could talk to you all day, but hopefully you've enjoyed watching this. We're going to do some more lives on here with different journalists. Hopefully this give you some tips on how to get radio ready. As I say, if you'd like to work with Janey, you know, you can follow the link. I think I've added one, or just get in touch with me. And the awards as well, I'll put your links down. What's the website, Janey, if anybody wants to look at it, to go in and enter or sponsor?
Yeah, the awards is platinumawards.co.uk.
There you go. Thank you guys for watching. Have a great rest of the day, and you can watch the Daily News Brief soon. And I'll see you all very soon. Take care. Thank you, my darling.